one of the biggest projects launched in 2023, really near the end of the year, was Grey Sheep. And now that the franchise has already released not only one EP but 2 digital singles, it's time to talk about this franchise and how exciting it is and why you should check it while you can. Let's kick off this episode of SEIYUU Lounge. Welcome to SEIYUU Lounge. I am your host Vanessa, and today we are going to talk about Grey Sheep, the biggest sensation when it comes to 2D music projects. And this is one of the projects that I was most reticent about because I didn't want to dive into EDM music. But let me tell you, it is one of the most exciting and quality 2D music projects to launch in 2023. For me, they are up there with Crunv at the moment, although Crunv is on a completely different level. But let's talk about this franchise and its 2 groups, GOAT and BAD SKUNK, and see a little bit why you should check this franchise out and why I am talking about it almost all the time on YouTube's community tab. So let's check this franchise out. So the first question that you may be asking is, what is Grey Sheep and why that name? Honestly, why that name is not something that I can answer, because there is no explanation why it is called Grey Sheep. So right off the bat, you do not have an explanation as to why it is called Grey Sheep, but either way, it is an interesting name, it is an unusual name, and from the name alone, you can't even understand which is going to be the type of music performed in here or what this project is about. This is something that, from a marketing standpoint, is a drawback. It is something that doesn't really make the project easy to understand for people first coming across. It's not clear what this franchise is about from its name. It shouldn't be instantly obvious like some projects instantly are, but in this case there is nothing really telling about this name. You cannot know what this project is about. But yeah, Grey Sheep is a project by Love and Art, which is basically the Otome brand within Mages. Mages is a music label, a Japanese music label, that you may know for housing the B Project franchise, for example. And they announced this project in December 2023. The story basically focuses on a conflict and collaboration between a special force called GOAT and a vigilante group called BAD SKUNK. The setting is a bit sci-fi-ish and it has a lot of crime and drama going on in here, so if you are a fan of those kinds of topics, this is going to be the franchise for you to check. This is a franchise, of course, that focuses a lot on drama tracks and music to complement those drama tracks. The drama tracks are regular ones, they are not recorded with dummy head mic, they are recorded as I'm recording right now this podcast in front of a mic, a normal mic, so there's nothing really fancy going on in there, but you have music to complement that, which is really, really cool. If you are, of course, watching this episode or listening to this episode well after this franchise started and the first EP was released, you already know a lot about the story, perhaps. In my case, I'm a person that usually doesn't check the story from a 2D music project unless I'm really, really passionate about it. In this case, I'm just still checking the music out, so I'm not that into the story, but let me make you a summary of the stories for you to understand what is going on. So in this case we have someone that transferred to the Metropolitan Police Department in East Tokyo. That person is called Snow, is a part of GOAT. And of course, according to the story, not long ago, East Kyoto was known for its poor public safety, so it was gradually stabilizing due to the efforts of 2 organizations, the police force, GOAT, and a grassroots vigilante group called BAD SKUNK. And however, the sudden resurgence of incidents and the unexpected declaration of a major corporate succession issue shook the stability in East Kyoto. So, what purpose lies behind the creation of GOAT and BAD SKUNK? And why did Snow come to this city, really? Behind this story there are vile intentions, cruel destinies, and poignant stories and desires, all concealed within the pure white darkness. From this synopsis alone, or this summary alone, you can already get a grasp that there is some conflict going on in here, It is going to be a sort of crime drama mixed with a vigilante story going on in here. It has a bit of mystery going on because we do not know why the leading character in this story, Snow, who is voiced by Seiichiro Yamashita and is basically the face of GOAT, what is going on in there and what has made that conflict arise. And also, what is BAD SKUNK and why there is a vigilante group if there is already a police force in there to make sure that there is more safety to the region. So there are a lot of things going on in here that make you curious about this story, but still, for me at least, it was not enough to grab my attention fully. So let's dive into the cast. This is where things get really interesting, and honestly, I love the cast in this franchise, although I have said before in the monthly review episode, the one from February, that I was really keen on basically exchanging a couple of SEIYUU to the other group within this franchise. Let's talk about this franchise. We have GOAT. It is the leading group in this franchise. GOAT stands for Great Operation Ability Team. It's not necessarily, we are not talking about goats, we are not talking about farm animals in here. And we are not also talking about the greatest of all time. We are talking about an ability team within the police force. And according to the story, they are elite talents and they carry out mainly clandestine missions despite their public image, focusing on improving the reputation of the police force through public relations activities. So they are really trailing a gray zone in there, and this only makes you more curious about this group and the story, because they are not really abiding by the rules. They are playing within what is permitted, but within a gray zone that no one can really call them out for. And we have in the cast Snow, who is voiced by Seiichiro Yamashita. We have Collar, who is voiced by Kentito. We have Nurse, voiced by Yohei Azakami. And these three SEIYUU at the time that I am recording this episode are the only ones singing for GOAT: Seiichiro Yamashita, Kentito, and Yohei Azakami. The group also has Spider, voiced by Shogo Sakata, Joe, voiced by Tatsumaru Tachibana, Owl, voiced by Shun Horie. And this is the full group. So we have 3 members at the moment that perform with the group, sing, and we have a total of 6 members who are participating in the drama tracks. On the other hand, we have BAD SKUNK, and this is a team that is based in the flashy live houses of the entertainment area. They are all about that rough, gritty and tough vibe of the city, and they have basically established themselves with a significant position as influencers and possess a vast number of fans. They are a vigilante team, and they manage various facilities and areas in the vicinity that are difficult for local districts or the police force to intervene in. They know the ins and outs of those small, dangerous neighborhoods. The leader is Junkie, is voiced by Makoto Furukawa. We have AK, voiced by Kentaro Kumagai. Neru, voiced by Shunichi Toki. These 3 are the vocals for BAD SKUNK at the time that I am recording this episode. So we are talking about Makoto Furukawa, Kentaro Kumagai, and Shunichi Toki. The group also has Cherry, voiced by Yoshiki Nakajima, Spring, voiced by Kohei Amasaki, and UP, voiced by Yuichiro Umehara. Let me tell you, when it comes to the lineups in those 2 groups, BAD SKUNK has the best lineup in my opinion. We only have in the same place some of the best booming baritones that we can get. This is crazy. So we have a really awesome group in here, and we have some of the smoothest, at the same time powerful, baritone voices in the business, all in the same place. So this group is really off the charts. But let's not forget that we have, with GOAT, we have not only Kentito, who is one of the best singers among male SEIYUU, but we have Seiichiro Yamashita, who is basically a powerhouse, versatile in singing, rapping. He does a little bit of everything, and he has been showing a lot with Anthos, as it is, if you pay close attention to this group, it is also a small reunion of members from Anthos, seeing as we have Seiichiro Yamashita and Kentito in the same group. And we have as well Shun Horie. If this group ends up having all 6 members singing, we have also Shun Horie in this group. And let me tell you, if he starts singing, he is going to really blow you away. So we have a really cool group in here, with GOAT having less experienced SEIYUU in the lineup. For example, Shogo Sakata, who is still in his first 2-3 years of his career, and Tatsumaro Tachibana, who has only very recently started to be active as a voice actor and get really good exposure for his voice acting work. So he's really starting out. And when it comes to music, he has very few credits. We have two awesome groups with two interesting lineups. Honestly, Bad Skunk have one of the most interesting lineups in this franchise. However, the music that impresses me the most is actually GOAT's. So we'll talk about these a bit later on in this episode. Also, we have SAP, which is a sort of a special agent or a secret agents team. In this case, SAP stands for Secret Agent Pig. I do not know why the farm animals yet again, but let's roll with it. And in this case we have Baker, voiced by Kenjiro Tsuda, we have Egg, voiced by Daisuke Namikawa, we have Tequila, voiced by Shotaro Morikubo, and we have Vanilla, voiced by Nobuhiko Okamoto. This group does not sing at the moment that I recorded this episode, and I believe that they will not sing, seeing as Kenjiro Tsuda does not participate in 2D music projects to sing. If he actually ends up singing, it will be the very first time it happens. This is a group of special agents that are really surveying the zone and trying to understand what is going on with Bad Skunk and GOAT. And this is all about their lineups. So let's dive into the rest of the franchise. I believe most of you may be thinking, yeah, this sounds all really fun, or I'm not really that into it, but what about the music? Perhaps you are like me, you do not care too much about the stories and you only want to dive into the music. Or sometimes you are just like I am when I find my new favorite group or new favorite franchise. You want to dive into as much as possible in the shortest amount of time. In this episode, let's talk a bit about the music in Grey Sheep as of March 2024. So I'm going to talk about Grey Sheep's episode 1 and the 2 digital singles by GOAT and Bad Skunk. This is not going to be an extended review. For that, I welcome you to visit the website THTFHQ.com and check for the reviews. They are there. They are really simple and really fast to read. Those almost take 2 minutes each to read. It's really short. In this case, we have the very first CD, Grey Sheep episode 1. I would be lying if I said that this CD didn't impress me, because it did. It did. And it impressed me so much that I checked this CD and I instantly went and bought the digital singles for Bad Skunk and GOAT. I had to listen to their music to check if they were the real deal. And I'm really impressed by what this franchise is delivering so far. Their music is nothing alike what you can find in other 2D groups or 2D music franchises. This is not to say that their music is completely innovative, because it isn't. And I've said in an episode of Monthly Review, the February 2024 episode, that their music in some way has shades of Crunv, but not necessarily sounding like Crunv, because Crunv is really sounding like its own thing and no other group right now sounds like them. But they have shades of that. They have a unique approach to their sound. They have really well-defined sound for GOAT, at least. GOAT has a kind of a cohesive sound, a really harmonious sound, and they have a sort of an ethereal vibe to their music. It's really interesting, and they show that in Greatest Homie. Although the title may not sound like it, the song is quite fun, and at the same time, it's quite ethereal, the instrumental. I found that song to be really cool, and I had a blast listening to it. It was one of those times in which I was surprised by how much I was finding it interesting to listen to EDM music. It needs to be a really cool EDM song for me to actually be impressed and want to hear more. And at the same time, it is a song with so much auto-tune that some may say, well, it's too much, but in my case I felt that the auto-tune made sense because this song has a futuristic vibe, and the whole concept of the franchise is kind of futuristic. At the same time, you have a jaunty piano leading on in Greatest Homie, which is something that I love a whole lot, and in some way it felt like a throwback to early noughties EDM music, which was really big on the jaunty pianos that made you want to dance, and they have that about their sound, and I love that a whole lot, because it is a kind of a throwback sound, although they are approaching it from an EDM lens from today. On the other hand, we have Groovy Good Beat. It's a song by Bad Skunk, and this song I was really excited about because, yet again, I'm going to tell you, one of my favorite voice actors and singers among male SEIYUU is Makoto Furukawa, and he is a part of this group. So I was really excited about this group because I got to listen to his voice yet again and listen to his voice in a completely different context from every other 2D music project he is a part of. And I was not wrong. Groovy Good Beat is not unlike anything he has performed so far for any 2D music project he's a part of. But in here, Bad Skunk have something, at least in this song, they have something going on in them that is completely different from usual. They blend a kind of a funky vibe and a funky sound going on from start to finish, especially with a big focus on the bass line and on funky guitar riffs to create a really danceable sound, but at the same time that sound is a bit urgent. It's a bit chaotic and you can feel that chaos as the song progresses because it has a bridge like no other, and this was a bridge that in some way threw me off a bit. It's almost as if you have a song within a song. It's not to say that it is bad, but personally, I felt the transition between the song itself and that bridge was too abrupt, to the point that the listener will instantly check if they are still listening to the same song that they pressed play a couple of minutes ago. It's that different. The first thing that came to my mind was how this song had a transition much like the pop tunes had in the 90s, especially the pop tunes that were following a bit of the style that Michael Jackson had, especially in his album Bad, and I found the transition to be just like that. When you listen to this song, you will understand, especially if you are familiar with Michael Jackson's music from the late 1980s and early 1990s, you will understand what I'm talking about when I say that this bridge sounds very much like what he was doing back then, which was basically what every single other pop artist was doing back then, especially because they were following what he was doing. I really found this CD to be interesting, but I was thinking that, yeah, Bad Skunk failed to impress me fully. They really had an awesome lineup and their vocals were outstanding, let me tell you. Kentaro Kumagai going that low and growly was really something to delight myself with. It was really cool to listen to his voice yet again and see how powerful he has become, and at the same time how he goes head to head with Makoto Furukawa and he doesn't lose any single time. Which is really awesome because Makoto Furukawa has been said by many voice actors, especially if you check what the members of Crumb have been saying about him. Makoto Furukawa is one of the best singers among male SEIYUU, and most SEIYUU do not want to sing in the same groups as him because they know that they will sound bad in comparison. So in this case, we have Kentaro Kumagai sounding as good as Makoto Furukawa, which is quite amazing. And of course, we have Shunichi Toki. It doesn't need any introduction because he's an amazing singer and he's a really powerful singer, although he is a tenor. So he can go head to head with a baritone such as Makoto Furukawa and he can give a show for you to remember him by. He's really that kind of singer that you want in your group because he's that versatile to the point that he can fit in with any kind of booming, impressive voice that usually steals the spotlight, but he arrives and he can also share the spotlight with that person and the group will sound really amazing as a result, basically. On the other hand, if we go to Goat has a really good dynamic. I feel that while Seiichiro Yamashita is the main character in this franchise, is the leading character in this franchise, he's not necessarily the leading one in the group, and the group, at least the performance, revolves around Kent Ito's vocals, and rightfully so. He's one of the best singers among male SEIYUU. He's really amazing when it comes to leading the way, as well as with being a really good core to a group. And with Yohei Asakami there, who I had barely any contact prior to finding him in this franchise, and who has still very few credits to his name when it comes to performing music, at least with varied 2D music projects. Kentito arrives to make sure that not only Yohei Asakami is sounding really good, but Seiichiro Yamashita is sounding his best. So this group works really well. They have a really cool dynamic going on in there that I enjoyed a whole lot to find in this single. This was a single that instantly made me a big, I'm not saying fan, but at least a curious person about this project. But what followed actually sealed the deal for me and made me want to check more of their music. So we are going to talk about now Fly or Die by Goat, and oh, Fly or Die. this is one of those songs that I really, really enjoy. It has an ethereal vibe yet again, which is something that you usually do not have. Anthos does that really well, and in some way Cranv have been doing that since their debut last year. Flare Die is really a song that feels like you are flying. It is in a wide soundscape, a really beautiful and wide soundscape, which is something that I fully appreciate when I'm listening to my music. And of course, it has a completely different vibe from their debut song. This is a song that has a bit of an R&B touch on the vocal end, especially coming from Kentito, which is something that I fully appreciate. But the group was all performing amazingly, both individually and as a unison. And when they performed as unison, they really showed that they can all perform falsetto, which is something that I was not expecting, especially coming from, once again, Yohei Asakami, who I had no contact prior to this franchise. So I was really impressed with what they delivered in this single. It is a single that really made me want to check more of their music and instantly made me want to spread the word about this franchise. They really sealed the deal with this song for me, at least, and I was all over GOAT because of that. On the other hand, Bad Skunk really changed things around. I was not expecting what they delivered in Violet Love, which is to say it is drastically different from what they released first. And in this case, the song is really aggressive. It's a kind of an intense rock tune with the 90s vibe going on in there. It still has a bit of a groove going on in there, but it's not as danceable, and I would say it's not danceable in comparison with their debut song. In this case, the sound is really intense and aggressive, the song is really dramatic, and on the vocal end there are big changes. First off, Shunichi Toki is performing in a really comfortable tone, but he also ends up roughing a bit his voice to match the low, growly vocals of Kentaro Kumagai and Makoto Furukawa. On the other hand, Kentaro Kumagai is more melodic. On the other hand, big change was Makoto Furukawa. I feel it is unreal how he sounds like in this song. I had never listened to him performing like this. He is performing in such a growly, deep and raspy tone that he sounds like he has smoked way too many cigarettes in one sitting. It's so raspy, his voice, that it goes to the point that I wrote in the review that I feel that if he has to sing this song live, he's going to basically mess up his vocals, because this is not the type of song that you want to sing all the time. This is a song that is going to shred your vocals in ways that you do not want. And especially for a song like this, it's not worth the risk of messing up your vocal cords to perform a song like this. But yet, he's performing in a completely different way, so rough, so aggressive, and so growly that you barely can understand it is Makoto Furukawa in there. He is basically unnoticeable, or he is not recognizable in that song. At least for me, he was not recognizable on a first listen. I felt that he was, for a brief moment, I felt that it was Kentaro Kumagai doing that, and actually it was Makoto Furukawa. So you have a really interesting performance going on in there. This is a better song than their debut song, for sure. Violet Love really had me going back to the 90s to enjoy a cool rock meets pop, kind of edgy tune. You remember those tunes from the early noughties when pop idols were all performing a sort of an edgy rock tune because they were cool and manly? Yeah, that's that vibe that they had in this song. Although a bit cheesy, as I explained to you, it actually worked really well with Bad Skunk, and their vibe is not cheesy at all. They are really intense, and I do enjoy that a whole lot. So this was a brief summary of the Grey Sheep franchise. And this is one of the most exciting franchises in the last couple of years, which is really cool. They add a little bit of a different touch to what you can call as EDM-centric 2D music franchises, because their sound is nothing like what you have found at the moment. And of course, we have in here a really cool lineup that I was not expecting to sound this cool, and two groups that are really interesting. Of course, seeing as the groups have 6 members and only 3 are performing now, I do envision that this franchise is eventually going to put all members in each group performing together. I do not feel that is a really cool idea, because the more people you have in a song, the least time they have on the spotlight, so it's usually tricky to have more people performing in a group. But then again, I remember that Bad Skunk has an outstanding lineup that I really want to listen to them and check out how they are going to sound. So I'm curious in one way, but I'm wary in the other, because I feel that a group with all members performing is going to lose their cool vibe, and at the same time they are going to lose the opportunity to showcase more of each of the three main members in the franchise or in the group by giving the time or sharing the time with all members within the group. So that's my observation in there. Now, the question that I haven't answered so far: is this project worth listening, checking out, to spend some time with? Yes, of course. You can find their music on Spotify if you use Spotify. I believe you can find their music as well on Apple Music, so do check it there as well if you are an Apple user. Their music is really cool. I found their music to be really interesting, and let me tell you, yet again, I'm not a fan of pop music, usually. And especially EDM music, it's really the least interesting music genre for me. And their music actually grabbed my attention, and I was actually really drawn into Goat's music, which is really EDM centric. This goes to show that their music actually went a step above everyone else when it comes to doing more than just the basics in EDM music. They went a bit further, and they did something really cool with the vocals they have and with the vibe that they want for each group. This is something that is really valuable to me, and if I was in your place, I would immediately try to check their music out, because their EDM sound is not like any other group out there, or at least it's not really following the trends that most 2D groups are now following, which is really cool. If you like kind of a throwback sound from the 90s, for example, this franchise has that a lot, which is something that I do enjoy a whole lot. Then again, it is sort of a trend going on with 2D music nowadays, that the groups either sound like they come from the 80s or they sound like they come from the 90s. But still, it is a sound or a throwback sound that I do enjoy a whole lot, and especially if it is done in innovative ways or in cool ways, a bit like how Bad Skunk did with their debut single. Although I do not enjoy that bridge section, the bridge section actually was a massive throwback to one of the biggest albums of all time, which is really, really cool. So they have nice ideas going on, they have really crazy things going on the vocal end as well. And I feel that Bad Skunk will be a group basically more difficult for me to categorize in a specific music genre, because they seem to do a bit of everything. But their overall vibe is that they do not follow rules, which really suits that group. At the same time, Goat really has an orderly sound, they have a really cohesive sound, and it actually goes in line with their vibe and their mission. It doesn't surprise me that the group sound how they sound. I was only surprised with how they tackled EDM music, because I was not expecting something really innovative in here, especially if you know that Mages is in charge of B Project, and B Project hasn't been that innovative in years, so I was a bit on the fence when I saw that Mages was in charge of the music. Thankfully, the music is really, really cool in here, and if you like EDM music, and if you like dance music, you are going to enjoy the music in this franchise. Also, if you are just like me, person that enjoys good music with good vocals and the occasional rock tune in here, you have as well Bad Skunk. They will for sure quench your thirst for good music, good vocals, and a good rock sound from time to time. Do check these groups if you can. The franchise itself, I believe it is worth checking out, especially because the franchise has just started releasing music at the time I recorded this episode, so you do not have too much to catch on. But if you are catching this episode a couple of years after this franchise launched, and you are thinking to yourself, why should I check this project? Well, you get a glimpse of how this project started, which is already a good indication to see where they can go next. And if they go really on a really good path, building up on what they have been doing really good so far, they may be sounding right now, or at the time that you are listening to this episode, they may be sounding really amazing. So the groups are really worth your time. The franchise is worth your time. If you want to dive into the stories, I would say check the stories as well. The drama tracks are there for you to enjoy and to get a bit more into the story that is going on in the world of Grey Sheep. And this is all from me. I would love to know what you think about this franchise, which is your favorite group so far, and which songs have impressed you at the moment, and what are you looking forward to this franchise going on in the future. At the moment, for me, I'm looking forward to all these groups to continue to improve on their music and their quality. I would love for the franchise to stick to each group having 3 vocals, but I believe this is not going to last too long. because they went and grabbed a lot of star power for each group, and they will not just leave them there to participate in the drama tracks. At least I feel like that's not going to happen. So let me know in the comments what you think about these franchise. And remember, leave your comments as complex or as simple as they may be, and you can be featured on upcoming episodes of SEIYUU Lounge. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss the hand that feeds HQ's weekly male SEIYUU and music-related content, hit the subscribe button. And if you are listening to this episode on a podcast listening platform, please consider following the podcast and leaving a review. Leaving a review is really simple and helps other people find this podcast and fall in love with male SEIYUU artists and 2D groups. I'll return next week with another episode of SEIYUU Lounge. Thank you for listening and see you guys around.